Hello, everyone. I am Julianne Meyer. You are watching Own Your Wellness, and I'm excited about today's guest. His name is Sean Robinson. He's coming all the way from Canada, where, for those of you who don't know, I had the honor and the privilege of living for 6 years. Of course, I lived on the west side, so we were not anywhere near each other. But still, Canada has a special place in my heart. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our special guest today. Welcome.
Hi,
So glad
Julie.
you're here. So I just want to hop right in. First of all, thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking time.
Yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Yay. I love hearing that. Not everybody, I mean, obviously you and I had an opportunity to speak before this happened, but not everybody knows who you are. And I'd love for you to share a little bit about yourself and your journey so that people can get a synopsis, the quick version.
Okay, definitely. I'm 39 years old. I've got three young kids. The last one was born 2020, right middle of COVID. And I'm married, and I've been working construction electrician for about 17 years and on a volunteer fire department for about 20 years. And very, very masculine environments, and very much led me to continue a path I feel like I was destined to be on forever. Backing up a bit to the end of 2020, I found myself about 320 pounds, feeling very miserable, unhappy, blaming everything else but myself. I didn't feel I had to have any control. I felt like I knew what I had to do and I wasn't doing it, and just didn't have a good place. I call it my rock bottom moment. And to start 2021, I felt like I needed to make a change. So I decided the first step towards healthy lifestyle choices was to eliminate alcohol from my life. So starting 2021 January, I did a 30-day break, which became much more than that.
I love that. You got to start somewhere, right? I'm
Definitely.
just thinking too, as a volunteer or fireman, it must have been really hard to do that with all the extra pounds.
It definitely was. I've tried to be healthy because 20 years, quite a while. I've had a few better years and a few years at heavier. It's kind of been a yo-yo effect, right? That's how these things work when you're not focused. And there was some harder years. I had bigger gear, my energy levels were low, and it definitely played heavy on me because I wanted to be better.
I love that. I mean, obviously you have a heart where you want to help people. And I mean, that's evident you're here, but also the fact that you've been doing this for 20 years, not to mention construction, you're building, you know, you're creating. So I just love all the ways that you show up in the world. But something that I really want to touch on is this idea of, you being in this really masculine environment. And how did you, because I mean, before we really hop into the conversation, something that I want to point out about where I want this to go for the audience sake is you did stop drinking. We are going to talk about that, but that is part of your journey. It's not the end all be all. So it's not like we're going to sit here and talk rehabs and things like that. But I think it's a really important thing because, especially in the Canadian culture, drinking's a thing. Like that's what you do. I mean, it was the same for me on the West Coast. So I mean, it just permeates so much. And in the United States, it's a lot like that as well. But it's different in Canada. Let me tell you, it is different. It's just how you are and what you do. It's like let's have some beers, but
Yeah, drinking and hockey.
yes, exactly. Yeah, those are two of my favorites. But anyway, there's some, when you decided to go on this 30-day quit drinking experiment, shall we say, there had to have been some people in your life that weren't very supportive.
There definitely were in the beginning. Being dry January, it was almost acceptable because there was other people around me that were doing their version, and some had decided to take a break. You go from all the spring, summer, fall events, and right through Christmas and into New Year's, and it's like as soon as that New Year's is over, dry January fits well where it does. But after a couple weeks, people around me started falling off. They gave
Mhm.
up. They figured they made it. I did 2 weeks. I'm good. And I committed to the 30 days and didn't want that. I wanted to at least go through and I had that goal. So as people around me started falling off, they couldn't believe that I was still going. They couldn't believe that I was going to these social functions or out for, a drink after work on a Friday and not having a drink, choosing something different or being a different person. And January was probably one of the easier months
Mhm.
because at first there was, like I said, people doing it, but then um, it was until February where people were like, "Oh, you did it! You made January, awesome! Okay, let's have a drink." And just I wasn't ready for that yet. So as I started to continue on from what was the 30 days, there was definitely a lot of challenges from all of my circles.
Well, I like the idea too that you were still going out with your friends, you were still doing things. So it's not like you stopped your life because you stopped drinking. And a lot of people are deathly afraid of that happening. And you happened to tell me a story about your buddy's wedding and how he expected you to drink. And there's just so many different scenarios, and weddings are one of them where people just expect you to throw them back.
Yeah.
But how do you navigate, or how did you navigate something like that where other people want you to drink because they're drinking and that's how they know you? And now all of a sudden you're not being you in their eyes.
It took some trial and error in the beginning, especially because my habit and routine with drinking was so predominant. Like and I think this is very common, right? Like there was so many things that I just, if I could do it one handed, I could do it, right? We could play horseshoes, we could whatever. I could always had to have a drink on the go. And as I started to change, it was more about me trying to figure out how I could maintain in those environments without it.
Mhm.
And I had to get I mean, everybody's got coffee cups, but I decided I needed a special one, right? I bought a Yeti mug that was specific to for me to have at that function, and I would put whatever I wanted in it. And in the beginning, it was like I was more worried about what other people thought because I knew what was in this cup. So
Mhm.
while it was as much of a safety blanket for me, it was also in my own head. So once I started to work through that and still going to some functions, maintaining this choice, it became easier because the people around me started to learn more about how I was going to handle myself and how much this meant to me.
I like that. And something that you said too that I really want to point out for those drinkers out there. That's what I did too. Like when I used to go out, I realized that it wasn't so much the alcohol that I really enjoyed drinking. It was the people, the time that I was spending with people, and also just the actual action of having something in my hand and taking a sip of it. It didn't seem to matter if it was alcohol or not, but there was something about that ritual, because it becomes a ritual and a habit that's kind of hard to break. And I like that you just sort of weaned yourself off a little bit there.
It was definitely hard to break. It was just so ingrained in all my social circles and construction. It's expected that you come in every Monday and you've got your stories from the weekend and you got your I was so hungover stories and there is a certain expectation in those environments and that these environments I'm in where you just were doing what everybody else was doing. And I
Hmm.
think it's so common that I didn't have a concept of not having it. I had it around me from such an early age, and while I didn't get into it till I was in my teens, it was like such an acceptable thing to have alcohol in the group, and to remove that, decide to do something else but still be involved was definitely a challenge. When I started this thing, I came up with, I don't know where I got the idea, but I came up with some rules for myself, and I
Hmm.
know this is very very helpful. But I set out three, and then another rule I created later, just about being present, having a good time, not staying home and becoming a hermit because I'm afraid of what I might do. It was just a very very solid structure, but also very easy. They were just short rules that would help me get through it.
I like that. I like the word structure because it really does help when you're in moments. If you don't have a structure in place, then it turns into a willpower game. Will I or won't I? I mean, you had made up your mind, so it wasn't really that I wouldn't say it wasn't that hard, but it was different than people who were on the fence.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden they could be talked into just one, just one. You did the 30 days, but what's one drink? You already proved you could do it, but
Oh, there was so much pressure, and people thought, because I'd go out with the guys still, and then they'd say, "Oh, your wife's not here." Like, well, she didn't make this decision. It's not up to her. It was something I wanted. So if I was to have a drink, I would know that I had a drink. So then
yeah.
I would feel that I failed in the attempt I was making.
I love that saying too is who's going to know? I'm going to know. That's who's going to know. I will.
Yeah,
My opinion of me should matter more than everyone else's.
yeah.
So what are some other benefits that you found from not drinking that I'm assuming that weight loss was part of that, but what else happened?
So it started as a weight loss thing. I didn't realize how negative I felt. I know my wife and I had some moments, and I was very cynical, and she made sure to remind me. But there was uh, there was a lot of negativity, a lot of aggression, and a lot of what I remembered as a child growing up that my parents or others around me would behave like when they were drinking. And I saw myself becoming more of that person that I didn't like. So while not drinking and not being hungover were a big thing, but I wasn't that aggressive. I was more patient, and having three young kids, I just didn't have the energy to do these things with young kids. And then I was finding I'd have more energy. I was more interested in doing what they were doing because I was less interested in getting through everything I brought in the cooler and playing these one-handed games with everybody else that was drinking. Like I was involved with the kids,
Mhm.
and almost like a catalyst for change because it gave me the confidence to try other things. Like I started running more. I started eating better and different diets, better than the ones I tried before. Because the eat less, move more thing just doesn't work. You have to do more than that. And the biggest thing through the whole thing is just how to break these big habits down into smaller pieces and taking these things one step at a time. Because it was something I worked at over 30 days, 60 days, 100 days, etc., it was spacing it out over a period of time. And I wasn't so desperate to find immediate results because it was something that kind of happened as I spaced it out.
I think you mentioned something really important there. You weren't so desperate to find immediate results. It is such a society where we are very interested in immediate results. Take a pill, feel better instantly. Take a
Yeah,
pill, lose this weight. Less effort and quicker seems to be the draw. But I like this idea of, it's almost like you were experimenting with yourself.
I definitely was. It was a lot of experiment and ways that I hadn't done so before. It was such a trial, and I don't want to say error because I've been able to get through a lot of things, but it was trying a lot of different things. It was trying fasting, trying more exercise, trying mornings versus evenings, like just fitting
Mhm.
it in and small habits. If I could only do, I used to think you had to run at full bore in order to get to the effect of the run, but just that walk is just as powerful, and I didn't realize that.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the idea of doing things consistently versus big spurts here and there. It's amazing how much better you can do and feel if you are consistent with things, even if it's just a walk. I mean, actually, that's a lot more powerful in a lot of respects than running because it's really hard on your body. Running is,
Hmm.
especially if you have a little extra weight, it's harder on your joints. But yeah, I like this idea too of just sort of experimenting with yourself and seeing what works and maybe what could be different, but giving yourself time to really discover whether or not something was working for you versus I tried it once. You go to the gym once. Why don't I have Arnold Schwarzenegger muscles? Doesn't work like that.
Yeah, and it wasn't like day to day I decided to do something different. It was sticking to that 30 day, 60 day, 100 day mark, and having that goal that I'm going to do this thing for this many days. and see how I feel. And 100 days really became kind of my one and only benchmark for these things, because I didn't feel like 30 days or 60 days was enough. So
Mm.
100 days, everything from just brushing my teeth twice a day. And I was
Mhm.
writing these on the calendar. I have this calendar in my garage where like I walk by to leave for work every day. And on this calendar, it's got all these marks and circles and X's and squares, and it's every one of them means something else. If I don't want to talk about it because somebody's over, I don't have to tell them what these marks mean. So
Yeah.
there's vulnerability there to a point, but really less, because it's up to me whether I want to say. But every one of these marks for 100 days at a time, or I've got different things at different parts of that process, and just keeping track of it, staying consistent, like you said, is so powerful.
I really like this idea of putting it on the calendar and just marking it off, because you get a dopamine hit. I'm telling you, it works. And for those who are watching, I know you know, but for those of you who are watching, and for those of you, since we have been talking about alcohol in AA, you get a coin, and it's the first every up until day 30, you get a coin every 24 hours. If you go to a meeting, you can get a coin. And the point is to get that dopamine hit, so you'll come back again and you come back again. So you get your 30-day mark, you get a coin. 60-day, you get a coin. 90-day, you get a coin. It's just so that you keep trying, so that you can get that next goal coin. It works. It's the same thing with the calendar. It's the same exact idea, where you don't want to break your streak, because then you have to start over.
Yeah.
I mean,
And if you break your streak, definitely start over, right? Don't think that you failed, because now you have a new goal. If you
mhm.
made it 31 days, now your new goal becomes 32, and then you build that streak from there, right?
I love that idea. And what is it called? There's something that I teach, and it's turning your bad day into good data. And so instead of taking the bad day or the bad whatever that happened and making yourself go down the rabbit hole of opposite choices, you actually take that and go, huh, how could I do this differently next time?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
because then if you because these things are hard, right? If we have that drink, or we have that thing, and maybe we don't go back down to where we were, but we
Mhm.
feel like, I had that one thing, so now it's all done. But you don't have to think that way, because now you have that new goal. It's now that number becomes your new gold number, and then from there you can get up to the next milestone, right? You choose
Mhm.
what your milestone is.
Exactly. And also, even if you do slide, for example, and make that choice, oops, sorry, I just knocked something over. Anyway, you're not the same person you were before that 30 something days. You're not the same person. So it's not like you failed. As you've mentioned, you haven't failed. It was just one choice. And what makes
No,
you a
and
failure is not getting up again.
exactly. And whatever it is, that 30 days is a huge thing you may not have ever done before. So
Exactly.
to pick that back up again is huge. Like, you need to do what you can to get back on.
Exactly. I love that. On that note, it is time for us to go to a commercial break. So we'll be back in just a minute. And for those of you who are watching us live, thank you so much for being here. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about Sean's experience with quitting drinking, and also what the other benefits that this has led to in other goals and whatnot. Anyway, we'll be back in just a moment.
When drug or alcohol addiction take over, things begin to disappear. Your friends, your family, and eventually, you. Recommended by Dr. Phil, New Method Wellness can help get your life back with individualized treatment plans for dual diagnosis clients. New Method Wellness provides the most highly credentialed treatment in a safe and welcome environment. Call New Method Wellness for your free consultation and ask about our national accreditations. Together, we can put the pieces back together.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's bring our guest Sean back to the show. Welcome back. Sorry, I got an itch. Of course, it happens after we get back. Anyway, so what I was thinking about during the commercial break was this idea of just sort of keeping going. I was talking with somebody earlier today, and we were talking about running, and he ran an Ironman. And so, I mean, obviously part of that is running, and he hates running more than anything in the world. So what he did for his part of it was he had to run through a neighborhood. So he would run to, say, a mailbox and walk to the next, run to the next, walk to the next, just to get through it. And then sometimes he found out that he could just keep running to the next one after that. And he sort of made it more of a game. And I'm just wondering if that's kind of something that you would do too, is instead of making it drudgery for yourself, make it more of a game. Like, can I do this? Let's see what happens.
Yeah, there's definitely a part of that. It makes it easier for sure. I had a concept, and it was Ed Milet speaks a lot about it. It's the title of his book. It's just one more, right? So when I was running or doing these things, it's like, I know the one more day thing, but it's one more driveway, it's one more song, it's one more whatever. So it kept me going as I was working through my fitness stuff and getting more healthy that way.
And I'm curious too, because you've written a book and we're going to talk about that, but is that how you wrote your book too? Just one more chapter, just one more whatever? Because I've written, I haven't written an entire book, but I've written with other people in books, and that's kind of how I did it. So I'm just kind of curious what your book is like.
Well, my book was a journal that I kept during that year. I'm still not drinking now, but when I got through my 30, 60, 100 days, I challenged myself to be an entire year. And all throughout, I maintained this journal. And with this journal, it was never something I did before because of those, masculine environments, and nobody was going to find out I was keeping a journal. But so I kept this thing from that that rock bottom moment straight through. And when I was getting through about close to the end of the year, a friend of mine said, how's this whole thing going? How are you doing? And I said, oh, I could write a book. And it really dawned on me that I had 10 months at the time of content that was all of this journey and everything I went through and every challenge and family and friends doubting me and just all the barriers. And it was absolutely what I needed when I got started. I needed that version that I could have given myself. So I decided in that moment that I've got 2 months left of this current challenge. I would finish the year, continue the journal, and really consider in the new year, that was 2022, to put this book out or see if it was something that would gain traction. And I took my journal and I transferred it to and made a manuscript out of it that someone would understand what was going on. Someone would understand the background because I've brought them into a bit of, where that drinking habit might have come from, or where, where I was going. And I self-published. I found someone to help me with edits and everything and design, and self-published to put that version out that someone that, like me, because I'm really reaching for my old self, can get it and see. It's not a very big book. It's straight to the point of this year journey, and how we can all do this if we want to change. We can do our own version of it.
I like that. I have a really good question that I just popped into my head. And that is, after a year, did you stop keeping track?
After I did stop keeping track. There was a point with some of these things that I was challenging myself to the 100 days. Like I mentioned, brushing my teeth. It was something that I did now and then, but it was not a very good habit.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, this is an easy one. I'd already committed to not drinking,
Mm-hmm.
but this was like, oh, I can do this and just try and see if this 100-day thing works on other stuff. So I did it twice a day, morning and night, for 100 days in a row. And I said, I'm going to challenge myself and I'm going to stop. I'm not going to keep track after the 100 days. And I can't, even still, that was one of the first things. This is a couple, 3 years later, like morning and night. I can't leave my house. I can't go to bed. Like I'll get out of bed to do it because it's such a routine now. And after that year, when I decided, like, I'm at a year now, what am I going to do?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not just going to go do shots, because I felt great. I had more patience. I was all of these things that I achieved that. So I decided to continue not drinking, but I stopped keeping track because I didn't feel like I needed to see that mark on the calendar anymore, because it was now a part of who I am.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for saying that. It's interesting because, and I don't think I've ever shared this story, but my husband and I met, and I'm a non-drinker because I had an alcohol issue, and I've been sober for over 9 years now. So, I actually don't really keep track too much myself, but the people around me are so happy that that's kind of why I'm aware of when my birthday is, as they say in the AA world. But anyway, when I met my husband, obviously he knew nothing about me. We met on a blind date, but when he was reaching out to me beforehand, he said, "Do you want to meet for drinks?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely. But just so you know, I don't drink alcohol," because I didn't want him to be uncomfortable around me if I didn't drink alcohol. I love going to a bar. I love hanging out there. I just don't love to drink alcohol. There's plenty of other things that I can drink, but I like the environment. I like being out. And I knew he wanted to go to a nice place. But the thing is he had just decided that he was going to do 30 days of drinking. And then we've been together a little over 3.5 years, and he hasn't had a drink since
Wow.
we met. And it had nothing to do with me per se, except that I didn't drink and he didn't feel the need to. And it just sort of became this thing where now he wouldn't drink. I mean, he just wouldn't. It's not who he's not. He's a non-drinker. So he doesn't celebrate that either. So I like that idea of it becoming who you are versus I got to make sure that I, put this on the calendar. Otherwise I'm not going to do it.
Yeah, and it's, when that date is, right? And mine, I know it's funny because dry January starts on the 1st, right?
Yeah.
But I did whatever I could do to put it off as far as I could, because January 1st was I think it was a Friday, and then it was, it's the weekend now, and Monday was the day. So first was a Saturday, so Monday was a day in lieu, right? We got the Monday off because that was a holiday for the 1st. So I didn't actually start until January 4th, because that was the day, that was the first day back to work. That was the first day. So I remember that date, but yeah, it's not, it's important because every year that passes, oh, cool, it's another year. But it's like, it's just not as important to me because of how much I've been able to do on top of that. That was just one step.
Yeah, exactly. It was a starting point for other things. And that's one of the reasons why I like talking to you about that, because people don't realize that even if you have a drinking problem, that's only the beginning. The quitting drinking part is important, don't get me wrong, but all the other things that you've been able to do and accomplish and become from changing one habit, one that's ingrained in you, it makes it feel like other things are much more possible, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, it does, because I didn't have the tools before to know about the habits and breaking it down and taking it slow and all of these things that we can do easily instead of this hard instant gratifying thing. I
Mhm.
didn't know all that before. So it all translates just the same, from brushing your teeth to not drinking to, like, I'm just about 98 pounds down. I'm just about at 100 pounds lost from when this started.
That's amazing. And then have you found too, because for me, when I quit drinking, this is actually a really good question. Did you find you had a sweet tooth?
Yeah, I arguably had that sweet tooth all along, though, because it takes a lot to get to 320 pounds or so. So there was a combination of the drinking routine and the snacking and the overeating and the late night stuff. Like there was a lot happening to make me where I was.
I like that you don't credit just one thing, but a bunch of different things that kind of, it all culminates because it's never just one thing. I don't care what it is in your life. It's never just one thing that causes, for example, weight gain. It's a bunch of different things.
Mhm.
I'm curious too, now that you've lost all this weight, because I mean, that's like an entire person basically, you know, um, do you still see yourself? I mean, how do you even see yourself now? Do you still see yourself as bigger, or can you actually see who you are in the mirror?
No, I can see who I am in the mirror. Um, it's because I know what it's taken to get here. I know that this wasn't something that just happened. I know that, like that trial and error, and being scientific with what I feel, what feels good, what doesn't. It's like trying all these things and doing these exercises and not eating things or eating things. It's a culmination of all these things. So it's been a slow go, and I don't think I would have had it any other way. I just didn't realize that I had to be this persistent with it. Right. And the way that and it was another Ed Milet show, but he was talking about a pinata, and whatever that pinata is to you, if it's, your body or your mental state or whatever, you keep hitting that pinata. You don't know when it's going to break, right? You just keep hitting it. You keep hitting it. You keep doing that workout, or you keep going for that walk, or you keep reading those books, and eventually the pinata is going to break, and the rewards are going to come out.
I've never heard that before. I really like that. In the Napoleon Hill world, is don't stop, or you're 3 feet from gold. So
Yeah.
you never know how close you are. But yeah, you got to keep hitting that pinata. The other thing I like about that is how visual it is when you slap it, like hit it, it twists and turns away, and you never know exactly where it's coming back.
Yeah. And then there might be something drop out, right? You might see the
Yeah,
scale and you might be happy with it, or you might have something happen at work or in your family life that you just really wouldn't have happened before
yeah.
with your old mindset, or where you were at. So those little bits kind of come, and back to your question, I can see myself in the mirror for who I am, because I've felt this the whole way, and I know I'm not done. I know that there's those couple more pounds. I want to get to that, three, or that 100 pound lost, and I want to do these other things. I've got a half marathon coming up in October, and I would have never done that before. I did two 5K races in the spring, and I'm not a runner. I've never had the confidence at all, and it was just something I challenged myself to do. So that half marathon is kind of one of the things I'm working on.
I like that. Now I asked, how you saw yourself, but do people actually see who you are now versus who you were, or do they still struggle?
No, they do, and I think they also struggle. There was, especially in the beginning, like you mentioned, the coins and AA, and I didn't do any of the programs, even though I definitely suggest to people they need to take advantage of the support that's out there, because there was a lot of struggle in the beginning that I think could have been easier if I had did the same. But like my own brother was asking me because I turned down a drink, and it was just past January. He's like, "Oh, what? You don't have your coin yet?" and my like different friends were really on me about it, and the um no, I was headed the pressure of continuing and staying on that path. They struggled to get to know me, because if I was doing so because I was mandated to not drink, or I had something had happened, God forbid, it almost, I feel like it almost would have been easier for everyone around me to leave me alone about it and to
Yeah.
accept that I was doing something. But because I made the decision to do it on my own, and I didn't have like a real length to how long I was going to do it for, and there was things I was just figuring out as I went, I didn't know in the moment, so it was hard for me to describe to somebody else what I was doing or whatever. So there was a whole range of acceptance and denial from the people around me.
And that's normal for everything. Even, I mean, I think too, you brought up a really great point, and I want to reiterate this is this idea that if you'd been mandated to do it, then people would have backed off. It's like if you're a diabetic, nobody says just have a piece of cake. It's not going to
Right?
kill you. I mean, maybe it won't kill you, but you need insulin. But if you just choose not to have sugar, then it's like, how dare you? It's
Oh yeah. Yep. Especially because it's so acceptable. It's a social lubricant. It's all those things. So it's like someone doesn't want it, and it's hard to, okay. Like part of that journey, once I started to allow some of the 0% options, socially, when I was out with friends, there was some of my waitresses and servers that were just confused. Like, I don't know. I think we have one. Let me see. And it's better now. But when I was going through this, even just a couple of years ago, like it was very awkward.
Yeah, it is. You know what I used to do too that would work really well is I would get like a club soda, put some fruit in it. Everybody thought I was drinking vodka, so
Yeah,
I never got bothered.
you can't. I couldn't have done that with my construction buddies. That wouldn't have gone over well. I ordered a Virgin Caesar once, right? So the Caesar Canada is just with Clamato juice instead of
Yeah.
tomato juice. And I ordered a Virgin Caesar at a restaurant, and they didn't have one. And I joked, "Oh, bring it with a great big umbrella." And the joke didn't go over well. It was very awkward, but more awkward because I was at like with like 5 or 6 other buddies from work.
But you know what I like is that you've stuck to your guns. Whether it was uncomfortable or not, you did what was best for you. I'm curious too, have you made new and different friends from this experience, or are they all the same?
I've kept a lot of the same friends, but I've made a lot more. I'm just putting myself out there more. Like I was
Mhm.
never one to do the YouTube videos or this show, a podcast. Like that was, I didn't even listen to podcasts before I got into this journey, because I just felt that for some reason I felt that self help space was for somebody else.
Mm.
And what, getting into this, I've met so many people that I've stayed in touch with, and we cheer each other on, and I try to keep in touch with most people I meet in this space. And maybe that wasn't me before, but
Mhm.
it's not what my current circles are into. So I still hang on to some of the same friends, because we still have a lot of the same things in common. And
Yeah.
even though I'm not drinking, we go to concerts, we do different things. But I have those friends for those moments, and then I have new friends for these other moments. Ones that are, maybe they're in the same space, maybe they're just not drinking, or maybe they're looking at helping promote some inspirational content or whatever. Like I definitely have both groups of friends still.
I love that because I know for a lot of people who are making these changes, one of the things that they're afraid of is losing all their friends. But my experience too has not been losing friends, but gaining friends. And there's certain friends that I just don't hang out with anymore, but we really don't have anything in common besides drinking. So when you don't have that in common, or if I only liked you when I was drunk, then we weren't really friends anyway. So
Yeah. There's definitely some of that. Like like anybody, you don't really know who, but you do
yeah,
grow apart. You feel different things. When some
yeah,
people, when they start to have kids and those friends don't have kids anymore, you grow apart naturally.
exactly.
I stopped drinking, and while I still tried to go out, there was people that didn't, not that they didn't want me around, but we just grew apart. And and that's okay, because we're growing in our own way. We can't stay tied to the exact same group forever. Things have to be able to change.
Exactly. And I love that too, because you're not making them wrong for growing in their own direction. And you don't have to make yourself wrong either for growing in your direction. It just is what it is. But like you said, it doesn't necessarily even have anything to do with drinking per se. But
No.
you are growing and changing as a human being, or you're staying exactly the same. To me, that's way more scary. But anyway, we do need to go to one more commercial break. So we'll be back in just a moment. And I said hello to as I get more comfortable, hello to everybody who's watching us live. Now I'm going to say hello to everybody who's watching us on demand. When we come back, we're going to continue this conversation about, how to make these changes and different things that maybe Sean's tried that you could try too, because something that, he said that really sticks out in my mind is that he wrote a book for people like him because he needed that. And I think that that's a really important thing for all of us to take into account. So we'll be back in just a minute.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversation. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back, everyone. Let's bring Sean back to the show. Welcome back. All right. So during the commercial break and right before, I was mentioning how you created this book for people like you, that you had needed this. And I really want to dive into this idea of you fulfilling a need that you saw. Because I think that there are so many people out there that have these ideas, but then they think, oh, no, not me, or who's going to want it, or all the self-doubt that comes up. And I know that probably had to happen for you too. I mean, what was that like for you, putting out a piece of your soul, basically? Here you go, world.
It was difficult. It had never crossed my mind that I would even mention to someone that I was keeping a journal, let alone paying to put it out there for someone else that might want to read me at my most vulnerable. Because like everyone that has a rock bottom moment, it's different for everyone, right? So for me to call it isn't a disrespect to anybody else's, but that moment wasn't proud for me, and it was difficult to decide that I'm going to put this out there for somebody else. But it's in that vulnerability where we become stronger, but then people that are looking for it might find it. And when I decided that I was going to take that chance, because it could have gone nowhere, and I wasn't putting it out for any other reason than to just help where I was at. So if it did go anywhere, I was prepared for that mentally, but it took a lot for me to get around the fact that there was strength in vulnerability, and it was an opportunity that I didn't want to think about years down the road, to say like, I kept this journal and it's just not relevant anymore because that's not where I'm at in my life.
Mhm.
I've heard a lot of content where someone's speaking of, from, and it was on a podcast I heard, basically from the peak, right? A lot of content comes from the peak and
Mhm.
not as much during, the trenches. And I thought that I could put something out that was as close to the moment as possible, even with a reflection in the end of the book where I reflect on the year. It was as close to that moment as I could possibly get, and I didn't want to lose what I had built for myself on that. So I decided that if I'm going to do this, I've got to do it right now. And I pushed myself to at least get the manuscript done, at least get through, and I still journal, but at least get through the journal, get through what was the year, write the reflection. I challenge the reader in the end, and just get through all of that, and then just see what happens. And deciding to do it was because I decided I was going to do it in October. I had 2 months left in the year. It was a couple months of should I, shouldn't I, and I'm glad I ended up doing it.
Yeah, me too. That's the thing too. I remember when I was a kid, I thought, because my mom passed away when I was 14. So that was a really traumatic experience, obviously. But the thing that was interesting was the things that adults would say to me. And I thought at the time, oh my gosh, I need to write a book about what to say to kids who have lost somebody, because people don't know. It's not like something that you're taught. And as I got older, I never did it because I just didn't. And I thought, man, I wish I would have done that, because I could do it now, but it's not going to be the same. Like you said, I'm not there anymore. So,
It was somewhere I didn't want to do later from
Mhm.
the peak, right? I didn't want to, if I could get through a few things personally and feel better about my situation and myself, I didn't want that version to be me reflecting on what I went through. I wanted it to be, because I had the journal, and I thought,
Mhm.
like, I want this to be as real as possible, because when I started listening to content and reading books and audiobooks and getting really into this realm that is self-development, I didn't want the professional opinion. I wasn't ready for doctors
Yeah.
books and opinion. I wanted to hear from real people. I wanted to hear from people that went through some of this stuff. And because I just didn't feel that I could go to these places where, meetings and stuff, it just, I didn't know where to get it from. So when I found it on
Mhm.
podcasts and I could listen to, even if they were miles away from where I was at, the different athletes and actors and stuff, like, I could hear real problems. I could hear similar to what I was going through, but I just thought they just still weren't quite the same. So yeah, putting my version out, I wanted it to be as real as it was to me in the journal I kept.
I love that. Speaking of those groups and AA in particular, I was forced to go in the beginning because of the situation that I was in. I did not like it. That being said, I do recommend it as well for anybody who is struggling, because it is a place where you can be accepted exactly where you are and people don't look down on you.
Hmm.
And so you really can just be that vulnerable. But the thing that I remember is I'd hear somebody with like 30 years sober. I'm like, yeah, I can't relate to you. But somebody who had 30 days, I'm like, all right, let's hear where because that's something that I could actually get to.
Yeah.
So I really appreciate that you did that, because people miss that part. And something else that I think is really worth noting is that you didn't seem so much attached to the outcome of the book as much as the intention. The reason why you put it out was what you were focused on versus what happened when it was released.
Yeah, that was the reason that I decided to do it at all, was it just seemed like something that I knew it was something I could have used. So
Mhm.
I know this isn't an uncommon problem. I know this isn't like some of the ingredients to my recipe are different from someone else's, but some of the things are people relate to. So if
Mhm.
I can use it, and I've now lived this transition, somebody has to be able to relate to it.
Yeah.
And if they don't, then they don't. But I just felt that it was something that can be related to and would help somebody else. So yeah, it was just in a matter of hoping that it caught the person that needed to hear it and wanted the, the raw version instead of the doctors and professionals version, which I definitely appreciate now. I listen to a lot of, Huberman Labs, and there's a place for all of that, but I just wasn't ready when I got started.
Yeah, and that's me either. I totally get that, especially when I am, say, trying to reach a physical goal or something like that. I'm not really interested in somebody who hasn't struggled and hearing what they, or how wonderful and easy everything is. That to me is a bunch of crap. I want to know like the hard stuff and know that I'm not alone in that and that I'm not some weirdo that's experiencing this and I shouldn't be. So, it's nice that you're able to share those experiences, and especially from a man's man perspective.
Oh, that was part of it too, for sure, because nobody was talking about it in construction and even firefighting. It's very masculine, and it's getting better. There's a lot more women firefighters now, and but it's very masculine. It's very, you're not talking about things. You're tough, and you're gonna suck it up and fix it yourself. And that was the environment I grew up in. Like 20, I'm 39. I spent 20 years. I'm still on, but that's 20 years on the fire department, and like those environments, they play a lot into like they've played a lot into how, like where I'm at. And my dad's a mechanic, and just growing up and with what he dealt with and what he knew as a parent, and it's like all of these things, we weren't talking about it in the groups I was in. So then to come out and say, I work in these sectors, I come from this background, and I'm putting this story out there, and I'm putting it out there in a place that puts me in a vulnerable spot, and I'm okay with it. It's a lot for someone else, like I said, like me, that just wants that version.
Well, I'll say too is that because you were able to do that, the right people are going to find it. And the other people who, they're not going to read it anyway. So, it's
Yeah.
kind of cool that you have it there because here's like a side note. When I worked in addiction recovery, you would be surprised at how many men have eating disorders and ones that are like handsome and thin and have muscles and the whole thing. Like you look at them and you're like, you don't have any problem. What are you talking about? And but they have nobody to talk to.
Hmm.
So for you to be able to put this out for those people, I'm not saying, you know what I'm
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I'm saying, for
yeah.
people like you that don't have anywhere to go or anyone to turn to. That's pretty amazing. I just want to pop up your website one more time here and also mention that we also will put up your QR code again, but people can come to your website and what do they find there?
On my website, I've got links to all the shows, podcasts I've been on. I've got YouTube, like a channel, and I'm putting out weekly videos, shorts now. I've learned shorts are where it's at.
It
And then I've got a weekly newsletter that comes from this, so you can sign up for the newsletter. And there's I highlight a podcast. I've got I make videos and stuff. I highlight in the newsletter, and I've got just a whole lot of content that I'm putting out. I've got a blog that I'm gonna launch here shortly called "Just Put Your Shoes On,"
I like
and
that.
it's building. I'm working on my own, and I'm just picking away at it.
I love it. Well, Sean, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show today. You've been an absolute pleasure. I really enjoy talking with you, and I miss hearing that Canadian accent. It's very subtle.
Well, thank you. I appreciate being here, and it's been great.
Thank you. Everyone, that is all the time that we have for today. Enjoy the rest of your week, and we will see you again soon.